Hey, big welcome into the 3 AM Coney. I'm Lukas Moore, your host. Hello. Matt not here at the moment. That's okay. Our show today is going to be a couple of interviews. First, we have Keegan Wilburn, who is an incoming freshman at Ohio University in the Mid-American Conference. That's Athens. You know, we're familiar with that area, especially with Joe Burrow, Cincinnati fans. And then we have Cole Baker, who just graduated from Ohio University on this show. The reason for it is we're going to dive all into this college football situation. The Mid-American Conference, the conference that Ohio is in, was the first to cancel their fall sports season, the first to cancel football out of the Power 5 conferences. So we have a really interesting opportunity to have a discussion about these cancellations and what the players think, a former player and an incoming player, about this type of season. Keegan, thanks for joining us on the show, man. I really appreciate you calling into the 3 AM Coney.
Lukas, man, I miss you in Athens.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It feels like a much longer time with all this COVID-19 stuff going on. I thought I'd be gearing up to watch you potentially hit the field as a freshman. What's it like, man? I have to ask from an emotional standpoint. You're a guy that's played football every year of your life, and now not playing it for one fall. I mean, that's got to be weird. It has to be some sort of anxiety bringer for you not to have football in your life this fall.
A little bit. I think it's different when you put it in perspective like that, because I feel like when you come in as a freshman, like, kind of have to take it with a grain of salt that, you know, you're coming in to work against guys that have potentially been here 5 years. So when you come in, you might not expect to play right away, and that's okay. But just going forward with things, I don't know. It's a weird time to be a college athlete. It's a invigorating time to be a college athlete. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of voices being heard. There's a lot of commotion. There's a lot of chaos. So, I think it's awesome though, because, get to come in. Everything's new. It's not like anybody has dealt with any of this before. So we're all going through it together, and you just staying patient, I think, is the key to getting through all this for everybody. Really, it's just the process.
Yeah, and it is a process, and the question I have to ask is, would you have played and personally felt safe if you would have been asked to play by the Mid-American Conference?
Personally, me, myself, my body only, yes, I would have felt fine. I don't have any underlying risks that, comply to COVID. I don't have anything wrong with me or anything that would be an issue if I were to have played. But me as a person that can walk around to my family and hug my grandma and talk, get in close contact with, meet, greet with family that, they might not make it if they get the virus, that to me is scary. But as far as me being an actual athlete, no, not particularly.
Well, were there any safety protocols that you guys at Ohio University were planning? Did Coach Solich have things in place that you were aware of before they pulled the plug?
From my understanding, everybody was very unaware of let me back up a little bit. Everybody was unaware of the decision that the MAC made prior to them making the decision. Coach Solich found out roughly about the same time that we did, so we actually didn't get an official word from our coaches before it broke off Twitter. I mean, that's typical. That happens for guys getting traded in the league. It gets happened to teams everywhere. But prior to that, everybody had this attitude. We were getting ready for a season. We were really working hard at getting in the weight room every day, field work. It was pretty much fall camp, but just came to an abrupt stop. So, we're still figuring out things here on our end at Ohio. I don't know what other programs are doing. I can only speak for us.
Well, yeah, that seems to be the main issue with college athletics right now. It's a piecemeal, put together, not really sensical type of operation happening. And the piecemeal part of it is in so many different ways, from athletic directors to presidents, from presidents to boards that happen to run some of these schools, to alumni that are big decision makers at our school, all the way to different conferences making different decisions. all the way to, and this is the most important one, there was no communication between those who put on the game and those who play the game. There was no representation from a student-athlete point of view in these discussions. And if there was some sort of student-athlete representation, maybe this season does find a way to kick off because you can come to these kids and make an agreement. They're not kids. You know what? Let me back up. These are 18-year-olds minimum. These are adults who have every right that an American should have as an adult, other than the 18 to 21 range, not being able to drink, and you have a higher rate when you rent a car. But you are adults, and it just is amazing to me that Keegan, nobody that plays had any say one way or the other about whether this season should happen or not. What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting, and I don't disagree with you. But what I can say is that as a program, as a whole, there's not a mood that comes out of, our higher ups, like Coach Solich, Coach Covington, which is our football ops guy. He's been incredible through this process of just, COVID and getting guys moved around, people coming in, quarantine periods. That guy's a rock star. I do want to shout him out on him. But, even up to them, I don't think that they know. I think that there might even be some sort of disconnect between, them and the conference or the NCAA. But, as far as we're concerned as student athletes, we have like unity councils and things like that meet with the coaches every so often. And I believe that some of our older players are starting to take advantage of those programs, a little bit more frequently now than they have been in the past. Just due to everything that's going on. I don't think that is something that's really been utilized in the past. But
Keegan, let me drive into this, and we'll hammer it home. If I were to come to you today and said, this is the College Football Players Union, and it's legally official, it's ready to go, are you signing up for it?
Do I get paid?
It's not it doesn't say it gets paid right there, but there's no repercussions for joining the union. It's just being able to negotiate for potential pay.
I think it's a great idea, but I think that with some formulation of a organization of that stature, there's going to come a money barrier. I don't know where or how you form some sort of union or whatever without, a little bit of capital. And as far as the NCAA has it right now, we don't have that type of power. We don't have that type of say-so. So something like that would have to be a proposed idea from the higher ups or something from an outside source. I don't know if the athletes themselves, people have been crying to have pay since I can remember. And I'm here now. So I honestly don't know how that would work as a whole, but I love the idea. If you could actually get a team of attorneys to negotiate lawyers, or not to negotiate lawyers, negotiate contracts and to negotiate pay for all these guys, or negotiate player health safety, negotiate how much you get per, I don't know, there's just so many specialized things that go into that.
Negotiate, how about on rules? Negotiate on, like you mentioned, player safety. Negotiate on suspensions. Somebody that's there on your behalf. NCAA rules violations, negotiate there, right? There's no reason to me that you guys can't be represented. It's unbelievable to me. We have a group of adults in this country who sign a letter committing themselves to something, receiving no compensation other than a scholarship, but you can put a monetary value on that scholarship. And if you are saying something is compensation, and it's a scholarship, you're kind of playing in legal gray area. I just think it's something that would be positive for everybody involved. I think that college football would have a much better chance of coming back. I think it's going to be better for these schools in the long run to have these, because if this body would have been in place, Keegan, I think you guys would have had a much better shot to at least see if you could play, negotiate if you could play, be involved in the discussions about playing. And that just feels only fair for somebody that's worked as hard as you have and is a legal adult.
Well, yeah. You think about it. If you look at the structure of the NCAA as a whole, it is a business. You can look at it. You can argue any which way, direction, or angle. It is a business. what is a business need to be great, to prosper? It needs a product. You know what the product is? The product is the player. And when we step out on the field, that's the entertainment. That's what you pay for. You pay $45 to $2,000 for a ticket or somewhere around the country to watch that product. And if the product doesn't have a say in the whole grand scheme of things, I mean, you can't move forward without us. So, in essence, I think the only way that something like that would happen is if somebody from the outside, higher up, or literally every single college athlete would have to band together and create something great. I think it would be beautiful, but I don't know how feasible it is, unfortunately.
Well, we'll see if there are smarter people than you and I, Keegan, working on that problem. Maybe the NCAA can sit up, make a decision, make it one way or the other, let there be a union. This is the type of scenario that makes it a real issue, the type of structure that the NCAA has had for a very long time. But let me ask you this question, Keegan. As a player in the group of five, as a guy who could have possibly played in the Power Five, but you elected to have a group of five scholarship at a school that's close to your home, and you've got a real chance to play and be productive and be in the MAC. Do you think it would be a good idea, I'm throwing a curveball at you, but do you think it'd be a good idea if the group of five, so the MAC, maybe not the American, but, at least the bottom four conferences and the 10 that make up the FBS, if they started playing in the spring from now on till forever and did a group of five playoff, what is your initial thoughts on that as I throw that idea at you?
I think it sounds fun. It sounds very, very fun. Something that I kind of battled with, coming here was that I like to compete. I like to compete for something. I like to have a goal and a target in mind. So, yeah, every year Ohio wants to win a MAC championship, but after that, there's not really like a set something in mind.
Yeah.
So, having like a national championship game or striving to get to a New Year's Six bowl, that's almost impossible or far out of our reach. So, I think that would give something consistent to look forward to every year, and it would be very fun. I know it would be super competitive.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, even if you did it in the fall, Keegan, I mean, how fun would an Ohio versus Boise State group of five national championship be for everybody involved?
It would be crazy.
I think it's
awesome.
And I think, would you as a player consider that a national championship?
To me, playing in the MAC, you have to take it for what it is. Yeah, that is your national championship if you're a group of five player. I think that's a beautiful idea. I've never even thought of that. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, maybe the NCAA will listen to me one day, although I've been saying the same things for 5 years. So has most of the country, and they continue to be a body that doesn't move much, and they're facing some strife. But Keegan, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. I really appreciate it, man. Good stuff. Great show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always good to catch up.
Always good. That was Keegan Wilburn. Cole Baker coming up next, 3 AM Coney. All right, a big welcome back into the 3 AM Coney. Lukas Moore here. Just had Keegan Wilburn. Now bringing on Cole Baker. Cole, you just got done with college football, so luckily you aren't the one personally affected by this, but you have to feel for a lot of your teammates, a lot of your former coaches at Ohio University, that they won't be playing football this fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Disappointed that the MAC decided was that the first FBS conference to announce. Disappointed, in the outcome. I hate it for the coaches and the seniors coming up. I hope for a season in the spring, but right now, I mean, honestly, it's not looking likely.
Well, it's not looking likely, I think, a lot because of the financial hurdles that the NCAA
Absolutely.
has to go through right now. Not the NCAA, but the group of five, specifically the Mid-American Conference. I mean, we know how few people sometimes went to Ohio Bobcat games. However, those ticket sales still were a decent part of the revenue that the Ohio Bobcats were bringing in. So you're asking a conference with schools that perform way worse financially than Ohio University. You're asking them to take on all this extra cost of the pandemic. So testing, distancing, masks, shields, different protocol, longer staff hours, more staff hours for cleaning, extra equipment guys, probably a pandemic expert being brought in. You have all those costs and you lose all the revenue from the fans in the stands. Do you think that finances played a much bigger role than the Mid-American Conference or any of these college football conferences are willing to admit?
I think that's the root cause of all of this. I think with your points, exactly. The MAC is losing money each day this past couple of weeks with these Power 5 conferences rescheduling and, saying we're only going to do conference games. The MAC plays, however many non-conference games against Power 5s. I think I read an article that the MAC was slated to get, close to $11 million this year from out, non-conference games from Power 5 schools. So, on top of the ticket sales, on top of, having to pay staff, cleaning, following these guidelines, it has to be financial more so than player health.
Yeah, I think that they're at least equal part. Maybe we don't take the full step and say it's only about money or it's only about player health. I think it's really fair to say that especially for these small conferences, it is equal part financial and health, because a big reason is the health aspect of it has to do with what the players want. And that was a big problem you had when you and I first initially discussed this, was you don't like that the players had no say, no voice, no seat at the table, nothing. The players were completely absent from this entire process.
Right. So, that kind of, where we left off earlier is where the NCAA is there as, to protect these players and solidify the, we're amateurs of the sport, which my opinion of it, we're the opposite of amateur. I think, once you're in college football, especially at the Division I level, you're more so professional than anything. So I think the lack of representation from student athletes, especially football, played a huge part of not having a season, especially in the MAC.
Yeah, do you think that a players' union would have helped, fix that issue? Would have been a great part of it, to where at least the players would have had a voice at the table, not even for compensation, but just some sort of player coalition for this issue?
I'm not sure a players' union is the exact answer for it. I do believe that player representation should have been involved at least a little bit. I feel like there was no, you see it all over Twitter, but how much does that go into effect when the board members take this kind of vote, whether or not to have a season? Do they really, are they really looking out for the best interests of their players, or, are they looking out for what the player wants? I'm sure this whole decision was based, some on financial, some on, the health aspects. If you're going to have kids that are out there playing, I do believe that those kids should have a say in it as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. From now till Sunday, every day, I'm going to say, yes, the players should have a voice. Just to jump to the side a little bit, because you do have two former football programs, what is the plan at the junior college level? Do you know what East Mississippi's doing right now?
I honestly, before I got on the phone with you I was reading an article saying that there's going to be no fall 2020 season for East Mississippi. The National Junior College Athletic Association announced earlier that they weren't going to have fall sports way before talks of Division I FBS schools, and the Mississippi Athletic Commission announced that they were going to play independently from the NJCAA, solely based on the players, because junior college recruiting happens during the fall. I mean, you're not going to have recruiting going on in the spring because you want guys coming in mid-year like myself. And honestly, in the springtime, the numbers are slim. I would say an average junior college program has between 25, high end maybe 40 players enrolled in the spring. And, those numbers aren't really logical to have a full-fledged season.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see if Mississippi pulls out. I figure like them and the SEC, like these places that absolutely love their football. I think that you going to East Mississippi is a perfect example, Cole, of why you are not an amateur, because you sought out a career by going a place to go to another place, right? That in and of itself is more than being an amateur, a student who plays football on the side for fun, whose main objective is learning. Your main objective clearly was to play football at the Division I level, a goal in which you succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, who deems us as amateurs to, kind of sit through the day-to-day life of a student athlete, especially at the junior college level and at, any level of Division I, II, or III. I played Division II. I played junior college ball, played Division I ball. It's not just some regular guys playing a sport. It's professional. It's, there's a schedule on it every day. It's set, and it takes, some resilience and a lot of skill to play this sport. I just don't think it's fair to us and to all the current athletes out there to be called amateurs.
Well, and here's where I want to ask you what you would do personally. So I asked this to Keegan, and I'm going to ask you again. If there were a union, it was formulated, and let's pretend you were still playing, and they came to you and said, would you like to join this union? We're going to try to bargain for pay / some sort of other compensation. Would you have joined that union?
Initially, I would say yes. I do. How do you kind of value an individual, without a salary? Because you look at it like the NFL, and you look at it like the NFL. They get salaries, they get their contracts, and states like California and New York passed a bill, paying for their likeness. I'm saying that correct. Likeness.
Yeah, likeness. Yes.
That's, from my understanding, that's, kind of advertisement based. If your face is on a billboard, you're supposed to get paid. Me coming from the trenches, it's a little less glory. Yeah. A little less TV time.
You're saying no billboards for the D tackle.
I mean, not as much as, QB1.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, how do you compensate that evenly without having some sort of hierarchy among the team?
Well, how about this idea, Cole? Because I've thought about this question a lot, and your point there is the most important one, I think. I think that there should be, because what you're doing is professional, what you're doing takes 40 hours a week minimum. Right. What you're doing is something that could be considered a job, is that you should have the option to choose your compensation. There should at least be some sort of choice. So what these colleges can do, and they can do all this if they get out in front of it, and they'll win legal battles from now until the next 30 years if they just get out in front of it. What they do is they come to you and say, hey, Cole Baker, we are offering you a scholarship to Ohio University. Or we are offering you the scholarship plus the cash stipend you would receive with the scholarship anyway, which is what everybody's doing now at Division I. So you receive the value of the scholarship. So at Ohio University, you'd receive room and board plus tuition. So you'd get about $23,000 in cash plus the cash stipend, and we'll pay that to you in cash for your time here at Ohio University. And then you'll receive some sort of prorated scholarship if you want to go back to school. So if you want to just do online classes, that's about half the cost. They take another half off that because you were an athlete. And then you can go back to school in the 4 years following college. And that is in place all across. Either you pick the scholarship and take your classes while you're there, or you take the money with a prorated, cheaper scholarship later in your life. I mean, is that something that you'd be in favor for?
I mean, absolutely. I think, some people have different, they come from different parts of life and different scenarios where, that scholarship right now, the full scholarship and go to classes may not be the best thing for them. And, later on, the prorated scholarship that you can use later might be the better move. It's always a weird thing for me to kind of discuss as far as getting paid and all that. I didn't have any issues, but I know former teammates that came from poorer backgrounds, and they honestly struggled. And when you come home, and like you said, it's a full-time job. When you come home from practice and it's later, you had meetings and you can't go to the dining hall because the dining hall's closed. These kids go home hungry and they go to sleep hungry, and it's not fair to them. So I do feel like there should be some sort of adjustment for compensation, especially for those guys that are less fortunate as I was.
Yeah, and the NCAA's kind of inched that direction with the first cash stipend, and then now you're allowed unlimited food by some rule. But again, something has to be open for it to be unlimited, right? Money, you can get food anytime, all the time. I think this is a really interesting and in-depth and complicated discussion, but I think that you and I have established the most important point, which you are not an amateur. I mean, you sought out a career path. You went 3 different places. That's like jumping jobs. That's like trying to climb the ladder, right? You're going to Scuba Miss, where are you originally from, Cole?
Originally, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, so like Birmingham compared to Scuba is like the Ritz-Carlton, am I right?
Yeah, it was a bit of a culture shock. I do feel like everywhere that I've been to, there's been a culture shock. Being from Birmingham, somewhat metropolitan, suburbs, whatever you may call it, and then going to a town with 700 people, and then ended up somewhere in, Southeast Ohio, which, seeing all people from all walks of life, from Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, the Midwest, and, it's everywhere I've gone, it's been some sort of shock.
Yeah, I mean, but you're doing that for football and for the love of the game.
Right.
And I think that should be rewarded and compensated, at least so much so to give you some sort of choice in the matter. Because some people say, well, they can just choose not to play football. I mean,
right.
How unrealistic and unfair of an answer is that? And that just seems like absolutely ridiculous. You worked your whole life for this. You're specifically, I'm not very religious, but a lot of people are. Some people would say that you were designed to play football. You were designed with that type of agility and athleticism and size to play defensive tackle. I just think that you definitely deserve choice. You definitely deserve an option. And, I wish we would have somehow as a society gave you one while you played college athletics. But I'm sure still a lot of positives came out of that experience with your journey, Cole. I'm sure still a lot of positives. I think that's the important thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. I wouldn't trade, any decision that I ever made, along the way. Would I go back, back in my high school days and say, man, I really wish I would have gotten that Division I scholarship and just gone my 4 years. No, I would do my same exact path because I met some really great people from, every single school that I went to, met some great coaches, just made lifelong friends, and just the experiences, like you said, I would definitely want to relive those again.
Well, I mean, you'll be telling your kids about him for a long time. Cole, thanks so much for joining us on the show, giving your thoughts on this. It was a great discussion, and love to have you back on sometime over the next few months, maybe when there's football again. We can have you back on the show, Cole. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.